We want to move on to some more of these international headlines, including on the Israel-Hamas war and the ever saber-rattling Hezbollah group to their north, as we still recount this deadly strike by Hezbollah over the weekend in the Golan Heights. Fox News correspondent Trey Yingst has more details from down on the ground.
As war rages on in Gaza, concerns are shifting to the north, where Israeli forces struck a number of Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon over the weekend. The strikes come after a Hezbollah rocket struck a soccer field in the Golan Heights on Saturday, killing at least 12 children and teens. Sunday, Israel's security cabinet held a meeting as officials promise a strong response.
Hezbollah will not be exonerated for this event. They fired, they will bear the price, and they will pay a heavy price for their actions.
Hezbollah, without evidence, denied responsibility for the attack, the deadliest on Israel-linked civilians since October 7th. Still, the Biden administration says all signs point to the Iran-backed group. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. will continue to work towards a truce in Gaza to prevent a wider regional war.
One of the reasons that we're continuing to work so hard for a ceasefire in Gaza is not just for Gaza, but also so that we can really unlock an opportunity to bring calm, lasting calm, across the blue line between Israel and Lebanon.
But Egyptian officials are saying Monday those discussions are still facing hurdles. Israel and Hamas are reportedly still at odds over Israeli troops maintaining a presence between Egypt and Gaza during a ceasefire. Hamas is also asking for guarantees that permanent truce talks will continue after the first phase of the ceasefire. In Tel Aviv, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
Trey, thanks so much. In the meantime, here I have this tweet from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office saying that he visited the site of the tragedy there in Majd al-Shams, where 12 children were murdered by a rocket launched by the Hezbollah terrorist organization. In the meantime here, we do want to bring into the conversation our friend David Daoud there at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He is standing by and he joins me. David, thanks for being with us here. I know you've been following this so ever closely, and this is your area of expertise, Lebanon, Hezbollah, the Israeli north, the Lebanese south here. You and I have spoken so much, David, throughout the last, 10 months since the attack by Hamas in southern Israel about the threat of Hezbollah. Is it ever more urgent now? Is this the closest you have seen of a possible full-out war between Israel and Hezbollah in the wake of this attack over the weekend? Are we that close? And I think you might be muted there, David.
Andrew, it's always a pleasure to be on. Unfortunately, coming on under these circumstances where 12 children, as you noted, have been murdered while playing soccer. Is this the closest we've been to war? I would argue that we've been close to war from the outset of Hezbollah beginning its attacks on Israel on October 8th. This war of attrition they launched on Israel in support of their terrorist allies in the Gaza Strip. There was this illusion that this war of attrition could be contained and that a full conflagration was something distant. But a full conflagration was always a tragic incident such as this in Majd al-Shams, one incident away. And, did Hezbollah intend to kill these kids? Did they intend to strike the soccer field where they were playing? I don't think so. But when you're firing thousands of projectiles into civilian territory in the north, a tragic outcome like this is inevitable. And it's an outcome like this is always part of the probabilities of a war of attrition on a civilian inhabited area. And Hezbollah took that risk on October 8th. They knew that this was something that could happen, and they nevertheless continued with this. So we were always on the brink of war.
David, these are the faces of the 12 children. The IDF put out their pictures. Israel is such a multifaceted, multi-ethnic democracy. They're Druze children. What does that mean for our viewers who don't know what this ethnic group is in the Golan Heights or where the Golan Heights is? And what does it mean? Does it matter in the overall scope of the war that these were Druze children?
Well, there's a lot to break down in that question. So the Druze are a breakaway sect from Islam. They consider themselves their own religious group. In Israel, you essentially have two groupings of Druze. You have Druze who are Israeli from the foundation of the state from 1948. They volunteer, they're inducted into the IDF, conscripted into the IDF, like their Jewish compatriots. They're full participants in the state. The Druze in the Syrian Golan Heights, or in the Israeli Golan Heights, rather, this is the territory that was captured by Israel in the Six-Day War, and it included these Druze communities, including the one in Majd al-Shams. They've been traditionally more hesitant to integrate into the Israeli center, unlike their counterparts in northern Israel, their Druze counterparts in northern Israel that have been part of the state from the outset. But we've seen a push towards integration, increasing push towards integration in recent years, particularly after October 7th, kind of highlighted to everyone within Israel's boundaries that they are all facing the same threat against an enemy that does not discriminate. These are, at the end of the day, irrespective of their origin, Israeli citizens, and Israel is treating them as Israeli citizens. And Israel's Druze population, they serve in the IDF, they've fallen in combat both on October 7th and ever since then. They're a full and integrated part of Israel's social and political fabric.
Okay.
And I know Israel will respond to their death, the death of these 12 children, as it would any other Israeli citizen.
Yeah, the statement put out yesterday by the National Security Council spokesperson, Adrien Watson, I thought was very strong and was very clear and unequivocal. Adrien Watson said, "We've been in continuous discussions with Israeli and Lebanese counterparts since the horrific attack yesterday in northern Israel that killed a number of children playing soccer." She says this attack was conducted by Lebanese Hezbollah. It was their rocket and launched from an area they control. She ended the statement by saying this: "The U.S. is also working on a diplomatic solution along the blue line that will end all attacks once and for all and allow citizens on both sides of the border to safely return to their homes." David, are you seeing any chatter, any calls, from Europeans, the U.S., those in the West, from their citizens to leave Lebanon? Have you seen any indications that this could escalate even further with news coming from Lebanon itself, or no?
I mean, look, there's a possibility of escalation. The murder of 12 children is not par for the course. Now, it's not the first instance of either Israeli casualties at the hands of Hezbollah since October 8th. There have been several civilian and military casualties, but children, that many children in one instance, it's a big difference. And I think the Israelis are going to have to respond not in the manner they've been responding so far, just these retaliatory pinpoint strikes, something of a different kind, because this attack was of a different kind. Now, Hezbollah then has the option to absorb that, or they could not tolerate. It could be something that the terror group itself could not tolerate, and then they proceed with their own escalatory, retaliatory attack. So this is what I was emphasizing earlier, that the idea that this conflict is contained is an illusion, and this is just bringing it into the focus.
Lastly, David, does this scuttle the framework on the table between Hamas and Israel? We've seen, and you heard there in Trey Yink's report, Hamas is somewhat hedging. They want clarification from the Israelis on certain parameters of the deal. Is it going to be on pause, on hiatus? I mean, how can Israel walk and chew gum at the same time here? To my question on the banner you see on the lower part of your screen, can they do both?
I think the Israelis have tried to disconnect these two fronts from the outset. Hezbollah has stressed that they started their attacks on October 8th in support of their allies, including Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and they'll continue attacking until a ceasefire in Gaza is achieved. Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah said on July 10th, if I'm not mistaken, emphasized this point again: if there's a ceasefire in Gaza, Hezbollah will stop its attack. The Israelis, by distinction, and I think rightly so, have tried to disconnect these two fronts, saying that irrespective of whatever is achieved in Gaza, whatever quiet is achieved in Gaza or lack of quiet, this is a separate front that is a separate threat that must be dealt with separately. And irrespective of whether Hezbollah ceases its attack, the Israelis will take whatever decision they feel appropriate at that time. And they're not promising from the outset to say that if Hezbollah ceases firing, that they too will cease firing.
David, I just thought of this too, because this idea has been out there that, if Israel does not completely eviscerate Hamas and eradicate them, that will be some type of green light for Hezbollah, that the deterrent effect and factor will evaporate. Do you buy that?
I do. And not only that, let's look at the north, where for the first time in Israel's history, a de facto no man's land has been created inside Israel. Right? A security zone has been created inside Israel. And if the Israelis aren't able to push this back, to reverse this course of actions, to return their citizens home, not through Hezbollah's permission, but through their own force of arms, and that deterrence will be eroded. And Hezbollah will have an image of victory to present to its public that arguably is larger than the one they had after May 2000. In May 2000, they argued that they pushed, and this was fanciful thinking, it didn't track with the facts, but that they pushed Israel out of South Lebanon. Now they can argue to their base that they pushed Israel out of northern Israel, and that the Israelis were only able to return to their homes with their permission. So that is the real erosion of Israeli deterrence.
All right, David, we're going to have to leave it at that. Always a pleasure, David. Thanks so much.